II missile silo tour. I'm excited. Let's get this going. Come on this venture with me. Mine Road, well, off of Duval Mine Road, the old Duval mine. Now it's been so many names over the years, but it's a copper mine. And I've also done tons of work down here in Green Valley, Arizona, just south of Sarita. I've driven by this place so many times and have never stopped. merchandise. Just waiting to get into the actual tour. Kind of like that floppy hat. All kinds of merchandise. Books, t-shirts, jackets, hats, all kinds. Toys, even signs. I need this from the house. Oh, space. Freeze-dried ice cream sandwiches.
To enter the underground portion of the facility. Now, the day for our crew of 4 would have began about 30 miles away from here, up at the Davis-Monthan Air Force Base up in Tucson. There, the crew would have attended a morning briefing, gathered any tools and supplies they might need for the day, before beginning the 30-mile drive down mostly dirt roads to arrive here at our site. The first bit of security they would have encountered when they arrived here would be from that gate right over there. You might be able to see the small blue box attached to the gate. Inside that blue box, there is a telephone. They would use that phone to make the first of 4 separate phone calls that they would need to make before they gained access to the site. The first phone call was pretty simple. Just good morning, we're here, name, rank, serial number, and we're ready to begin our 24-hour shift. Then the gate would roll open and the crew would have 3 minutes to get all the way inside, park their vehicle, and head down this first flight of stairs, at the bottom of which there's another blue box with another telephone. They would use that phone to make the second phone call. Now, why only 3 minutes? Well, this was part of the security procedure. Let's say that after the gate rolled open, the crew was nervous that something was wrong. Maybe they thought someone was trying to infiltrate their group or to follow in behind them. Instead of having to send a second message, all the crew would have to do is take their time and meander nice and slow. And if they didn't make it to the second phone call within 3 minutes, nobody would be allowed inside. This would also alert the crew that was currently inside that something was wrong. And they would reach out to topside security, who would come by and make sure everything was A-OK for the crew to continue. But let's assume they did make it to the second phone call within 3 minutes. What would happen next? Well, the commander of the crew of 4, by themselves, would step inside and enter a locked area. Inside this locked area, and in front of the only live security camera on site at the time, the commander would make the third phone call. Now, the important part of the third call involved him reading off a secret code that he'd received that morning at the Air Force Base. He would read off the code, and then he would destroy the piece of paper the code was written on. He would destroy it using the very high-tech method of lighting it on fire.
That works.
You would then put the burning piece of paper into an old coffee can to burn the rest of the way out. When you go down this first flight of stairs and then step in through the doorway, you can actually see the old coffee can is still attached to the wall inside. Now, after the third phone call, the entire crew of 4 would head all the way down the 55 steps and into our blast lock area, which is where we'll be heading now.
That is cool.
From the map at the very beginning of our tour, this entire building is completely round. The round shape is one of the things that helps keep this area so well shot and isolated. Another feature that helps with that are the giant springs. You'll notice 8 of those located around different points in the room. And when you stepped into the room, you actually stepped over about a 12-inch gap in the floor. The floors are not attached to the walls of this building. So this whole building is so well shock isolated, the entire building could move up and down up to 18 inches, or from side to side up to 12 inches, and the crew would not even see a ripple in their morning cup of coffee. Now above us on the top floor are the crew's quarters. Up there, there's a bedroom, a full kitchen, and a bathroom. Below us, on the bottom level, is the maintenance area, That's where systems such as the plumbing, electricity, heating, and cooling were all monitored and taken care of. Now, the main floor here is the nerve center of everything that happened in this facility. And this is where the crew would spend most of their time during their 24-hour alerts. So what would they do for these 24 hours? Well, the first thing they would do would be a 3-hour check of everything in this facility. Every switch, every gear, every gauge, every door had to be checked to make sure it was all in perfect working order at all times. Then, halfway through the 24-hour shift, they would check it all over again to make sure they didn't miss anything the first time and that nothing had broken in the meanwhile. Each member of the crew would also get a 4-hour rest break where they could go upstairs and get some sleep, have a meal, maybe study for college, or if it was the late 70s, early 80s, they could even get in a game of Pong. Blank looks from our youngest, but that's okay. So, we've been talking about a crew of 4, but who are the 4 people who worked these 24-hour shifts? Well, they would have been made up of 2 officers and 2 enlisted personnel. This is normally where I ask for volunteers to help me out, and I already have my first volunteer, thank you. Does anybody else want to volunteer to help me out today? You get to sit in the comfy chair. Good, go for it. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your help. All right, now we're going to start by talking about the 2 officers. Our first officer is our missile combat crew commander. Welcome, Commander. Now, Commander, you'd be in charge of everything down here. So you would be responsible for the missile, the equipment, the crew, and the mission itself. Can you handle that responsibility? Yes, that's what I love to hear. Now, the best part about your job, Commander, was that you had the power to delegate responsibilities, also known as give orders. And you would most often delegate responsibilities to your deputy commander. Welcome, Deputy. Now, Deputy, you'd be a commander in training, so one day the big chair was going to be yours. But in the meantime, you had a couple special jobs all your own. The first job of our deputy is as our communications officer. So you'd be in charge of those banks of radio and communication equipment right behind your chair. The second job of our deputy is as our safety officer. Now, the safety officer was responsible for keeping track of where every person was on this site at any given time. To help you with that, you've written things on this locator board right here. So, those are our 2 officers. What about our 2 enlisted men? Now, I say enlisted men because when this was an active site, these were combat positions. And women were not allowed to serve in combat positions for most of that time. It was not until the late 1970s and an act of Congress that finally allowed the women in our armed forces to serve in combat positions. And in fact, silos such as these were some of the first combat positions offered to the women in our military. So I guess I should say, who are our 2 enlisted personnel? Our first enlisted person is our BMAT, our Ballistic Missile Analysis Technician. Now, this was a very highly trained individual who knew just about everything there was to know about the Titan II missile and everything about all of this equipment that was used to run it. And if something on the missile were to break, they would be the person who knew how to get it fixed. Our 4th crew member, second enlisted person, is the Missile Facilities Technician. Now, they would have been in charge of keeping everything in the facility running smoothly. So they'd be in charge of things like the plumbing, heating and cooling, ventilation, changing light bulbs, things like that. So that is our crew of 4. Now, I've been told from people who actually worked in these 4 positions that those 24-hour shifts were filled with long stretches of boredom, tedium, repetitive drilling, training, and paperwork, interspersed with moments of stark terror. And the terror would come about whenever a message came through. Now, the message could end up being something benign, like a weather report or a news update, but it could be orders, or it could be the all-important nuclear launch order. Now, in the United States, who is authorized to order a nuclear strike?
President.
The President, absolutely right. That's part of the President's duties as Commander-in-Chief. Now, the Titan II was a retaliatory missile, meaning we were never going to use it to strike first at our opponents, but we were prepared to launch in retaliation if we were under threat of a nuclear attack. So if the President received word that nuclear weapons had been launched toward us, the President would immediately send his orders out to the Pentagon. The Pentagon, after verifying the order, would send their orders out to Strategic Air Command. Strategic Air Command, after verifying the order, would send their orders out to all of our missile silos, all of our bomber wings, and to all of our nuclear submarines wherever they were on patrol. The first indication for our crew that a message was coming in would have sounded a little something like this. Well, not to worry. Our crew is highly trained. They would know exactly what to do. As soon as they heard the message coming in, both the deputy and the commander would each grab one of these, our emergency action message book. They would each grab a book, flip it open to a blank page, and immediately begin copying down the coded message, like the one we just heard. Now, as soon as they finished copying down the message, they would both close their books, close your books please, and exchange them with one another. Then they would open them back up to make sure they each copied down the exact same coded message. Now, you both wrote down the same thing, which was nothing, right? Perfect. So after making sure they had the same message, it would be up to the deputy to finish translating the message. And if it was the nuclear launch order, the deputy would then turn to the commander and say, "Sir, we have a launch order." Now, what do you think the crew would do first when they got a launch order? Any guesses? Verify, absolutely right, yes. They'd want to make sure this was a legitimate order, same as everybody else in the chain of command. To do that, they would go to the red safe in the corner right there. That is our emergency war order safe. You might be able to see that there are 2 padlocks attached to the safe. Those padlocks would have been the personal property of the commander and the deputy commander. You would have gotten a lock when you were assigned to these positions, and you would have set it up with a combination that only you knew. At the start of your shift, you would have attached the lock to the safe, and at the end of the 24-hour shift, they would have removed those locks and then kept them on their person at all times, even while you were asleep. So they would open up the safe and pull out 2 things from inside. First thing they were going to pull out is a set of keys. Because the only way to launch a nuclear weapon with a big red button is in a movie. Second thing they're going to pull out is an envelope. One of 24 separate envelopes, similar to these right here. Now, notice the 2 characters in the upper corner of each one of these envelopes. The first 2 characters in our coded message should match the characters on one of our envelopes. Let's say it was this one. So they pull out the envelope, open it up, reach inside, and bring out, aha, more code. They would use this to verify their orders. Also, to give them the 2 pieces of information that they need before they can launch the missile. The first piece of information is the launch time. Now, as I said, the Titan II was a retaliatory missile, and if we were under threat of a nuclear attack, we were prepared to launch all 54 of our Titan II missiles in retaliation. But you can't launch 54 missiles at the exact same time without causing a traffic jam somewhere up there. So each site would have a specific time that they were supposed to launch. The deputy would translate that time, and then he would write it across the face of this clock right here. Now this is our launch clock. You might notice it's set up to Zulu time. The great thing about Zulu time is no matter where you are in the world, it's the exact same time in Zulu. It doesn't take into account time zones or daylight savings, which makes it a great tool for coordinating efforts around the globe. So, that is our first piece of information right here. Our second piece of information is for this, right up here. This is our butterfly valve lock control. Now this is a butterfly valve lock. We have 4 of these attached to the Titan II missile. Works like this. When this is up, it's closed. Like that, it's open. Closed again. These were used to keep the fuel and the oxidizer on our Titan II missile separated. Now, the fuel and the oxidizer, they're a hypergolic mixture. That's a fancy way of saying that when they come into contact with each other, they immediately burst into flame, which is what gives us the rocket propellant. So, the deputy would decode that code and then give it to the commander. The commander would read out the code to the BMAT. The BMAT would put the code in up here, press this button, and if a green light came on, it meant we had the correct code. Now, there are 17 million possible combinations to this lock, and the crew is only going to get 6 chances to get it right before the system will lock them out for an entire month. Talk about 2-step verification. But our crew was highly trained. They were so well trained, in fact, the moment they heard the message coming in, they could have everything written down, decoded, unlocked, put in, and ready to launch in as little as 3 minutes. This is one of the things that made the Titan II such a great weapon of deterrence during the Cold War. So, with our butterfly valve lock code put in and our launch time written down, we have everything that we need to launch the missile. Now, it might have occurred to some of you that we are missing one piece of information that you'd think we would need before we could launch. Did anybody catch what that is?
Where is it going?
Exactly, where's it going? What is our target? Good. Now, Commander, on your console right here, you've got 3 lights that say target 1, target 2, and target 3. One of those lights should be lit up. Which one is it?
Target 2.
Target 2, that's right. Now, as far as we know, this site has always and forever been aimed at target 2. Now, Commander and Deputy, do you have any proof of where in the world Target 2 is? You could guess, but you don't know for sure, right? Yeah, I wouldn't expect you to know that. Do you think the crew working here back in the day knew where the targets were? No, they did not. There were two reasons why the crew did not know. The first reason is security. The location of these three targets is still classified information to this day. Nobody who's ever worked here knows for sure where the targets are. The second reason is psychological. It is a lot easier to blow up a nameless, faceless location that you have no connection with, as opposed to a place that maybe a family member came from, or maybe a friend went to on vacation one time. So for the sake of our crew, it was a good thing that we did not know where the targets were. So with our code put in and the launch time written down, we have everything that we need. All we have to do now is wait. But as I said, this would be a retaliatory strike, so we probably weren't going to have to wait for very long. Let's say we've reached our launch time, what's going to happen next? Well, the commander and the deputy are both going to turn their keys. And when they do, a sequence of lights on this panel is going to light up just to let us know that everything's working the way that it should and that our missile is going to launch. The first light says launch enabled. This light tells us that we have the correct code put in, the butterfly valve locks are now unlocked, and our missile is ready to fire. The next light says batteries activated. Now, there are two dry batteries attached to the Titan II missile. A dry battery just means that it's never had a charge in it before. So when that light comes on, a couple of knives are going to pierce the batteries and start flooding them with electrolytes, charging them up for the first and for the last time. Next light says APS power. When this light comes on, it means that the missile is now detached from our systems and it is running completely under its own power. The next light says silo soft. When the silo soft light comes on, you're going to hear a bell ring. That's letting us know that the silo door, the door right above the missile, is opening up and getting out of the way for launch. Now, that door is heavy duty. It's one of the things that keeps this area hardened and well secured. The door itself weighs 760 tons, but it is going to open in 15 to 20 seconds.
Crazy.
Next light says guidance go. When the guidance go light comes on, it means the thrust mounts on the missile are unlocked and that the guidance system on the missile has all the information that it needs. The missile knows where it is and it knows where it's going. Next light says fire engine. When the fire engine light comes on, you're going to hear a klaxon. Now that's normally a fire alarm alerting us to a fire in the silo. But in this case, it's a good thing. It means our fuel and oxidizer have come together, burst into flame, and we have our rocket fuel. Which leaves just one last light. This one right here. Could you read it for us, please, Commander?
Liftoff.
Liftoff, you got it. So that entire sequence is only going to take 58 seconds. Now,
What about the bomb?
what about the bomb?
What about the bombs?
Oh, those are for different drills and other training exercises. Yeah, so they're different lights. Good question. Now, once they turn their keys, there is no taking it back. There was no abort code, no self-destruct, no send the missile to an alternate target. So even if the President of the United States himself came running in and said, "Commander, stop, stop, I made a terrible mistake," there's only two words you can say to the President. "Sorry, sir." So 58 seconds is all it's going to take. Less time than it took for me to explain it. What do you folks think? Ready to see the launch happen?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So Commander and Deputy, could you both stand up for me, please? Commander, this is your key. Can you reach that? Just put your hand right there and just wait for me. And Deputy, you've got a key of your own. It's this one right over here. Can you put your left hand on that for me, please? Thanks. Now notice how far away the two keys are. This is one last safety feature so that not one person alone could launch the missile. It was always the responsibility of two. So Commander, here's what's going to happen. In just a second, I'm going to turn control over to you. When I do, you're going to give us a short countdown. 3, 2, 1, mark. On mark, you're both going to turn your keys to the right, just like you're starting a car, and you're going to hold it for 5 seconds. After 5 seconds, the lights on this panel will light up, letting us know you did your job and that our missile's going to launch. Are you ready, Deputy?
Yes.
Are you ready, Commander? Take it away, please.
3, 2, 1.
Mark.
Mark.
Turn and hold. Hold it. Hold it. You can let go and you did your job. Thank you both so much. We have the first lights here. We have launch enabled, so we know we have the correct code. And we have our second light, batteries activated. Now, this light is the longest part of the sequence. It is going to take 28 seconds for the batteries to fully charge, which gives all of us just enough time to sing the Jeopardy theme. No, I'm kidding. You don't have to sing it. A few more seconds, we should have our next light coming on. There it is, APS power. So the missile is now detached from our systems, and it is running completely under its own power. In just a second, we'll hear the bell. There it is. As the silo door is opening up, getting out of the way for our missile to launch. We have guidance go, so the guidance system has all the info that it needs. The missile knows where it is, and it knows where it's going. A few more seconds, we'll hear the klaxon as the fire engine light comes on. So one last light. There it is. Could you read it again, please?
Lift.
Lift off. So all of that in just 58 seconds. So now our Titan II missile is on its way. It's actually going to head up all the way into the stratosphere before it comes back down to find its target. A target that could be up to 6,300 miles away. When it reaches its destination, it will detonate its nuclear warhead, a 9-megaton hydrogen bomb.
Crazy.
And when that bomb goes off, it'll cause devastation over an area of 900 square miles. That's bigger than Los Angeles and all of its suburbs, bigger than any city on the face of the planet. But lucky for us, our crews never had to launch a Titan II missile in an act of war. Mutually assured destruction worked to keep all of us and the crew safe. But let's talk for a minute about what would have happened next for the crew if they had had to launch the missile. Well, the crew would have been under orders to wait for further orders. Sealed inside with those blast doors closed, our crew would have a 19-day supply of air to breathe. They would also have had a 30-day supply of canned food and water. But after 19 days, if they didn't hear anything, well, then there'd be a tough choice for them to make. And really, they would have only two options. The first option would be to go upstairs, lie down, and take an extended nap, and just not worry about anything pretty much ever again. Now, the second option is to go downstairs to the maintenance area and attempt to open the emergency escape tunnel with whatever's blocking it, with the devastation that's probably happening outside. Now, if they could get the tunnel door open, the crew would then have as much food and water as they could carry, a pair of sidearms between the four of them, and the location of a rendezvous spot about 20 miles away into the mountains, where they'd have to make their way on foot, and at that point, hope to meet up with somebody who could give them further orders. It was a pretty grim fate either way, especially when you consider the average age of the people working in these positions was between 18 and 24 years old. So imagine this as your first job out of high school or college. Lucky for us, our crews never had to make those tough choices. Peace through deterrence worked to keep all of us safe.
Crazy.
No, we're gonna.
Walking down this long corridor. It's just crazy. Now this green is supposed to keep you calm. And I don't know if I could stay down here 24 hours at a time and just be hunky-dory. can kind of see the hole. I hope. The glare is bad on my end. Oh yeah, it's coming through. You can see the hole in there. It's crazy. Well, that will do it for this tour. I got mixed emotions, man. It's crazy to me that we have to build something of such devastation to protect ourselves. But that's exactly what this silo was for. It was a retaliation. So if we got nuked somewhere, that this would retaliate right away. So it would deter others from attacking us. Total devastation of the United States. It's crazy to me. But unfortunately it was necessary. But it worked. It worked. During the Cold War, nothing happened. So I guess that's it. Thanks for being here.
appreciate it. If you guys can hit the thumbs up button, subscribe button. Subscriptions are super important right now. Once I can get monetized, I can do more things like this and bring me more material in more places. And I greatly appreciate it. It's free to you guys, and it helps me out greatly. And if you can share the link to anybody that's into this stuff, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Lots of love. Peace.